Right now, as you're sitting here watching this, something extraordinary is happening inside your body that you've probably never thought about. Beneath your skin, wrapped around your internal organs, tucked between muscle fibers, there are approximately 30 to 40 billion tiny storage facilities. These aren't just passive containers sitting dormant in your body. They're alive, active, intelligent biological structures that are constantly listening to every signal your body sends. These are your fat cells, your adipocytes, and they're about to become the most fascinating thing you learn about today. Because what I'm about to show you will completely change how you think about your body, about walking, and about why those 30 minutes everyone keeps telling you to walk each day might be the most powerful metabolic tool you never fully understood. Here's what blows my mind, and it's going to blow yours too. The moment you stand up from wherever you're sitting right now and start walking, not jogging, not running, just walking at a normal pace, a cascade of molecular events begins inside those billions of fat cells that most doctors never explain to you. Within minutes, not days, not weeks, but actual minutes, your fat cells start behaving differently in ways that would look almost magical if you could see it happening under a microscope. Most people walk around thinking fat cells are just inert blobs of stored energy that shrink when you burn enough calories. They imagine fat as this dead weight they're carrying around, like sandbags they need to shed. But that's not even close to the truth. Your fat cells are more like intelligent warehouses equipped with sophisticated locks, advanced delivery systems, molecular communication networks, and a direct hotline to your brain. And when you walk for just 30 minutes, you're not simply moving your legs and burning some calories. You're sending a signal that reaches every single one of those 30 to 40 billion cells, fundamentally altering their behavior and their willingness to release what they've been storing. Stay with me here, because what I'm about to walk you through, minute by minute, is rarely explained in this kind of detail, and understanding this timeline changes everything. Before we get into the exact sequence of what happens during those 30 minutes, we need to talk about what fat cells actually are, because this foundation is crucial. Your body contains somewhere between 30 and 40 billion fat cells, though that number can vary depending on your genetics, your history, and your body composition. But here's where the science gets absolutely fascinating, and where most people's understanding completely breaks down. These are not dumb, passive storage containers waiting to be emptied. They're metabolically active endocrine organs. Let that sink in for a moment. Your fat tissue is an organ system, just like your liver or your pancreas, and it produces hormones that communicate with the rest of your body, influencing your appetite, your insulin sensitivity, your inflammation levels, even your mood and reproductive health. Each individual fat cell is like a highly secured warehouse with multiple layers of protection. Inside each one, triglycerides are locked away. These are triple-bonded molecules of fatty acids that cannot just float out on their own whenever they feel like it. To release that stored energy, your body has to break those chemical bonds through a very specific process called lipolysis, which literally means the breaking down of lipids. And this process doesn't happen randomly or automatically just because you want it to. It requires very specific signals, the right enzymes showing up at the right time, and the perfect internal environment to allow it to happen. Think of it like a bank vault that requires multiple keys, specific authorization codes, and the right personnel all working together before anything can be withdrawn. Your body has built these security measures for a very good reason, which we'll get to in a moment. Here's the part that might completely shift your perspective, and this is something I want you to really hear. Your fat cells are not your enemy. They have never been working against you. In fact, they've been protecting you this entire time in ways you probably never appreciated. When you eat more energy than your body needs in a given day, your fat cells expand and store that excess as triglycerides, preventing those fats from circulating freely in your bloodstream, where they could damage your arteries, infiltrate your liver, or interfere with your organ function. It's your body's elegant way of keeping you safe, of managing surplus energy without letting it cause immediate harm. Your fat cells are doing exactly what they evolved to do over millions of years, storing energy for times when food might be scarce, protecting your organs from toxic fat accumulation, and maintaining your body's energy balance. But here's where things start to go wrong, where the protective mechanism becomes problematic. When those fat cells get too full, when they're stretched beyond their healthy capacity because they've been storing excess energy for months or years without much opportunity to release it, they start sending out distress signals. These signals come in the form of inflammatory molecules, chemical messengers that create a state of chronic low-grade inflammation throughout your body. This is when insulin resistance begins to develop, when cardiovascular issues start to emerge, when metabolic dysfunction creeps in silently, setting the stage for serious health problems down the road. Your fat cells aren't trying to hurt you even then. They're screaming for help, telling your body that the system is overloaded and something needs to change. And this is exactly where walking enters the picture as one of the most powerful tools you have. Now, imagine this scenario playing out day after day. You start walking 30 minutes every single day, consistently, making it a non-negotiable part of your routine. What changes isn't just the number you see on the scale, though that might change too over time. What fundamentally shifts is the behavior of those 30 to 40 billion cells throughout your entire body. They become more responsive to signals, more metabolically efficient, more willing to release what they've been holding on to. They shift from a state of chronic storage where they're constantly being told to hoard everything to a state of dynamic metabolic balance where they store energy when it's needed and release it when your body calls upon it. This is metabolic flexibility, and it's one of the most important markers of overall health that most people never even know to measure. The science backing this up is rock solid and comes from multiple lines of research. A study published in the Journal of Health, Population, and Nutrition in 2023 found that regular walking exercise significantly improved lipid profiles and reduced visceral fat, that dangerous fat around your organs, in just 12 weeks. Another fascinating study from Physiological Reviews demonstrated that even a single bout of moderate exercise stimulates adipose tissue blood flow and fat mobilization, delivering fatty acids to working muscles in real time while the exercise is actually happening. This process has been occurring inside your body your entire life without you consciously noticing it or understanding it. But once you grasp the timeline, once you see what's unfolding minute by minute inside your cells, you start to realize something profound. Your body isn't broken. It's not working against you. It's incredibly intelligent. And walking, simple walking, is one of the primary languages it understands and responds to. Now, let's walk through exactly what happens inside your fat cells when you lace with your shoes and head out for a 30-minute walk. This isn't magic or wishful thinking. This is documented biology happening in predictable stages. In the first 5 minutes, the moment you start walking, something critical begins, but it's not what most people expect. Your body doesn't immediately dive into your fat stores and start burning them for fuel. In fact, for the first few minutes of any physical activity, you're running primarily on glucose, the sugar that's readily available in your bloodstream and stored as glycogen in your muscles and liver. This is your body's quick access energy, the fuel that's easiest to mobilize and burn quickly. But even though you're not yet burning fat for fuel, something absolutely critical is already beginning at the cellular level that sets up everything that comes next. Your nervous system is waking up and shifting gears. Your heart rate increases to pump more blood throughout your body. Blood flow accelerates, especially to your muscles and your adipose tissue, and your body starts producing adrenaline and noradrenaline, hormones that most people associate with stress, but that serve a very different purpose during exercise. These are catecholamines, and in this context, they're good stress, the kind of hormonal response that activates beneficial biological processes. These hormones act like molecular messengers, traveling through your bloodstream until they reach your fat cells scattered throughout your body. When adrenaline binds to specific receptors on the surface of a fat cell, called beta-adrenergic receptors, it's like turning a key in a lock, like entering the first authorization code needed to open that bank vault we talked about earlier. This binding activates an enzyme called hormone-sensitive lipase, or HSL for short. This enzyme is the gatekeeper, the critical player in the fat release process. Its job is to start breaking apart those tightly bound triglycerides inside the fat cell, splitting them into free fatty acids and glycerol, molecules small enough to escape through the cell membrane and enter the bloodstream. But here's the important thing to understand about this phase. This process takes time to ramp up and reach full capacity. In those first 5 minutes, your fat cells are receiving the signal. The authorization to release energy is being entered, but they're not yet fully releasing their contents into circulation. Think of it like starting a cold engine on a winter morning. You turn the key, the engine starts, but it needs a few minutes to warm up before it runs smoothly and efficiently. The same principle applies to fat mobilization. At the same time this is happening in your fat cells, your muscles are gently pulling glucose from your bloodstream to fuel the walking motion. As they do this, insulin levels start to drop slightly because your body senses that energy is actively being used rather than stored. And that drop in insulin, even a small one, is another crucial signal to your fat cells. Insulin is the storage hormone, the signal that tells cells to hold on to energy and store it away. When insulin drops, it's like your body saying to your fat cells, "It's okay to let go now. We need that energy for movement." This is why walking after meals is so effective at managing blood sugar. You're creating the perfect hormonal environment for fat release while simultaneously using the glucose that would otherwise need to be stored. By the time you've been walking for about 10 to 15 minutes, something remarkable is happening that you can't feel, but that's absolutely transforming your metabolism. Your fat cells have fully activated lipolysis now. Those triglycerides are being broken down at a steady rate, and free fatty acids are slipping out of the cell membrane and entering your bloodstream in increasing numbers. This is where the warehouse analogy really makes perfect sense. Imagine your fat cells as storage units with a one-way door that's usually locked tight, only opening under very specific circumstances. Walking doesn't just unlock that door through the hormonal signals we discussed. It also dramatically increases blood flow to your adipose tissue, that layer of fat throughout your body. Think of this increased blood flow like opening up delivery routes and dispatching trucks to pick up goods from the warehouse. The fatty acids need a vehicle to transport them from where they're stored to where they're needed, and that vehicle is your bloodstream. Studies have shown that during moderate exercise, blood flow to adipose tissue increases significantly compared to resting conditions, making it much easier for fatty acids to leave the fat cells and travel to your muscles where they can be burned for energy. Your muscles, meanwhile, are starting to shift their fuel preference in a really elegant way. In the first few minutes, they were burning mostly glucose because that's the quickest source of energy. But as free fatty acids arrive in increasing quantities through the bloodstream, your muscle cells begin to take them up through specific transport proteins and shuttle them into tiny powerhouses inside each cell called mitochondria. Mitochondria are where the real magic happens, where chemical energy gets converted into usable fuel. They take those fatty acids and through a process called beta oxidation, they systematically break them down and convert them into ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy currency that your body runs on. This is the actual energy your muscle cells use to contract, to keep you walking, to power every movement. At this point in your walk, somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes in, you're in a beautiful state of metabolic balance that represents optimal fat burning. Glucose oxidation is still happening, your body is still using some sugar for fuel, but fat oxidation is increasing rapidly. Your body is learning through this repeated experience that it doesn't need to hoard everything. It's learning to trust that energy is available when needed and that movement is a regular, consistent part of your daily routine.
Here's a critical insight from the research that I need you to understand because it explains why so many people don't see the results they want. This 10 to 15-minute phase is where most people give up. They walk for 10 minutes, feel fine, don't feel like they've worked very hard, and decide to stop. They might think 10 minutes is enough, or they get bored, or they simply don't realize that they're right on the edge of the most powerful metabolic shift that's about to happen. They quit right before their body fully transitions into peak fat-burning mode, missing out on the most beneficial part of the entire walk. This is why consistency and duration both matter. You need to push past that initial phase to reach the sweet spot. Welcome to what I call the sweet spot of fat burning, which happens between 15 to 30 minutes into your walk. By the time you're 15 to 20 minutes in, your body has fully transitioned into fat-burning mode, and this is where the real metabolic transformation occurs. Studies consistently show that fat oxidation peaks during moderate intensity exercise at around 45 to 65% of your VO2 max, which is a measure of your maximum oxygen consumption. For most people, this moderate intensity corresponds to a brisk walk where you can still hold a conversation, but you feel slightly breathless, where you're definitely working, but not gasping for air. At this stage of your walk, somewhere between 50 and 60% of the energy you're using is coming directly from fat, not from glucose or glycogen. Your fat cells are releasing free fatty acids at a steady, sustained rate now. Your muscles are efficiently taking them up and burning them through beta oxidation in the mitochondria. Your body has found its rhythm, its optimal operating mode for fat utilization. But something else is happening during this phase that's often overlooked, something that has profound implications for your long-term metabolic health. Your fat cells themselves are becoming more sensitive to future signals. Think of it this way, and this is really important. Every time you walk, every single session, you're training your fat cells to respond more efficiently next time. You're increasing the number and efficiency of enzymes involved in lipolysis. You're improving blood flow to adipose tissue, creating more robust pathways for fatty acid transport. You're even influencing gene expression inside those cells at the DNA level, making them more metabolically flexible over time.
Research published in the journal Biomolecules in 2020 showed that regular moderate-intensity exercise increases the expression of proteins involved in fat transport and oxidation. These include things like FAT/CD36, which is a protein that helps transport fatty acids across cell membranes, and fatty acid binding proteins that shuttle fatty acids within cells to where they need to go. These are the cellular machinery, the molecular tools that make fat burning efficient, and exercise literally causes your cells to produce more of these tools. It's like your body is upgrading its fat-burning software with every walk. But here's where the science gets even more interesting, and this is cutting-edge research that's transforming how we understand exercise and fat metabolism. During this 15 to 30-minute phase, your body is also producing a molecule called irisin, which some researchers call the exercise hormone. Irisin is secreted by your muscles during physical activity, and it travels through your bloodstream to your fat tissue, where it does something truly remarkable. It encourages white fat cells, which are primarily storage fat, the kind most of us are trying to reduce, to behave more like brown fat cells, which are metabolically active fat that burns energy to produce heat. This process is called browning of white adipose tissue, and it's one of the most exciting discoveries in metabolic research in recent years. This is profound because it means that consistent walking doesn't just burn fat in the moment during your 30-minute walk. It actually changes how your fat tissue behaves all the time, even when you're resting, even when you're sleeping. By the time you hit the 30-minute mark, your blood glycerol levels are elevated, which is a marker that fat breakdown is happening at a significant rate. Your insulin is low, which maintains that open door on your fat cells, and your body is in a state of active energy flux, constantly mobilizing, transporting, and burning fat for fuel. You're not just burning calories in some abstract sense. You're actively reprogramming your metabolism at the cellular level, making your body better at accessing and using stored fat. This is why walking is so much more than just a calorie-burning activity. It's a metabolic training session for your entire body. Here's something that most people don't realize, and it's one of the most encouraging parts of this entire process. The benefits don't stop the moment you stop walking. For hours after you finish your walk and return to your normal activities, your body continues to burn fat at an elevated rate compared to if you hadn't exercised at all. This phenomenon is sometimes called the afterburn effect, though the more technical term is excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, or EPOC. What's happening is that your muscles are working to restock glycogen, the stored form of glucose that got depleted during your walk. Your fat cells are still mobilizing fatty acids to provide the energy needed for that restocking process. Your mitochondria remain more active than baseline. Your metabolic rate stays elevated. And critically, lipolysis, that fat breakdown process we've been discussing, remains elevated for up to 24 hours after a single bout of moderate exercise, as demonstrated in multiple research studies. Your fat cells don't immediately return to their baseline lockdown state the moment you stop moving. They continue releasing fatty acids for hours afterward. But the real transformation, the part that makes walking truly powerful, happens when you do this consistently over weeks and months. When you walk 30 minutes a day, day after day, week after week, your fat cells undergo long-term adaptations that fundamentally change how your metabolism operates. They become less resistant to lipolysis, meaning it becomes easier to trigger fat release. They store less aggressively and release more readily when called upon. Inflammation markers decrease throughout your body because those overstuffed, stressed fat cells start shrinking and stop sending out distress signals. Insulin sensitivity improves, meaning your cells respond better to insulin and you need less of it to manage blood sugar, which further facilitates fat burning. Your body learns at a deep cellular level that movement is the norm, not the exception, and it adjusts accordingly. And here's the beautiful paradox that makes this all work. The more consistently you walk, the smaller your fat cells become. Not because the cells themselves disappear, you're generally stuck with the number of fat cells you have, but because they steadily release their contents. And smaller, healthier fat cells are metabolically active in all the right ways. They produce beneficial hormones like adiponectin, which actually protects against insulin resistance and inflammation, creating a positive feedback loop. Let's ground all of this in the actual research, because I don't want you to think this is just theory or wishful thinking. This is measurable, observable biology that's been documented in multiple studies. A landmark review published in the journal Biomolecules in 2020 examined how aerobic exercise regulates fat metabolism in detail. What the scientists found was that the fatty acid oxidation rate during exercise depends on 4 key processes happening simultaneously. First, triglyceride breakdown in fat cells through lipolysis. Second, fatty acid transport from blood to muscle through the circulatory system and specific transport proteins. Third, the availability and breakdown of intramuscular fats, small fat droplets stored right inside muscle cells. And fourth, the transport of fatty acids into mitochondria where they can actually be oxidized and turned into energy. Walking at a moderate pace, that brisk walking we've been describing, optimizes all 4 of these processes at the same time. It's like the Goldilocks zone of exercise intensity, not too easy, not too hard, but just right for maximizing fat oxidation. Another study, published in the American Journal of Physiology, found that during moderate intensity exercise like walking, fat oxidation can account for up to 60% of total energy expenditure, which is far higher than what researchers previously thought was possible. And here's something really interesting that surprised scientists when they discovered it. This fat-burning effect is actually blunted at very high intensities. In other words, if you're sprinting or doing intense running, your body shifts back towards burning primarily glucose, not fat. Walking keeps you in that optimal fat-burning zone for extended periods. Here's what used to surprise researchers before they fully understood exercise metabolism. They once believed that only duration mattered for fat loss, that you had to walk for hours and hours to see any meaningful benefits, which discouraged a lot of people. But more recent data over the past decade has shown that consistency trumps duration when it comes to metabolic adaptation. A 2023 study in the Journal of Health, Population, and Nutrition found that just 12 weeks of regular walking, 30 to 40 minutes per session, significantly reduced visceral fat, that dangerous fat around your organs. It improved HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol, and it lowered inflammatory markers throughout the body, even without dramatic calorie restriction or major dietary changes. The walking itself was enough to create meaningful metabolic improvements. And then there's the groundbreaking discovery of irisin and the browning of white fat that we touched on earlier. This research was truly revolutionary because it showed that exercise doesn't just burn fat temporarily, it actually changes the type of fat you have in your body over time. Brown fat is metabolically protective. It burns energy to produce heat. It helps regulate body temperature. It improves insulin sensitivity. And walking is one of the most effective, accessible ways to stimulate its development without needing expensive equipment or complicated workout programs. Just putting one foot in front of the other consistently creates these profound changes. Now, what about safety and who should be cautious before starting a walking program? Walking is incredibly low risk compared to almost any other form of exercise, which is one of its greatest advantages, but there are still some considerations that responsible people should be aware of. If you have severe joint issues, particularly in your knees, hips, or ankles, you should start very gradually and possibly consult a physical therapist who can recommend proper walking mechanics and appropriate footwear. If you have uncontrolled heart disease or have recently had a cardiac event, you should definitely consult your doctor before starting any exercise program, even something as gentle as walking. If you're recovering from surgery, particularly abdominal or lower body surgery, you need medical clearance before walking significant distances. For people with diabetes, walking can lower blood sugar significantly, which is generally a good thing, but it can sometimes lower it too much if you're on certain medications like insulin or sulfonylureas. Monitoring your blood sugar before and after walks is important, especially when you're first starting out, and you should work with your healthcare provider to potentially adjust medications as your insulin sensitivity improves. But for the vast majority of people, walking 30 minutes a day is not only safe, it's one of the most evidence-backed interventions for metabolic health that we have access to. It's low impact, it requires no special equipment beyond decent shoes, it can be done almost anywhere, and the risk of injury is minimal compared to high-impact activities. The key to success and safety is to listen to your body. Pay attention to what it's telling you. Start where you are right now, not where you think you should be or where someone else is. If you can only walk 10 minutes comfortably right now, start there and build up gradually over weeks. Build slowly and progressively. And remember that consistency is everything. Walking 30 minutes 3 times a week is far better than not walking at all because you think you have to do it 7 days a week or it doesn't count. Any movement is better than no movement. So let's bring this entire journey full circle and recap what actually happens to your fat cells when you commit to walking 30 to 40 minutes a day. They wake up from their dormant, locked-down state. They respond to hormonal signals more efficiently with each passing day. They release stored energy instead of hoarding it desperately. They adapt to become more metabolically flexible over time. They become more willing to work with you instead of against you, shifting from a dysfunctional state to a healthy, dynamic state. This is the truth that needs to replace the old narrative. You're not at war with your body. Your fat cells aren't the enemy that needs to be destroyed or punished. They've been doing exactly what they were designed to do over millions of years of evolution, protecting you, storing energy for times of scarcity, communicating with your organs to maintain homeostasis. But when you introduce consistent movement, when you walk with intention and regularity, making it a non-negotiable part of your daily routine, You give those cells a completely new set of instructions. You tell them through biochemical signals that they can trust the environment now. You say, it's safe to let go of stored energy. We're moving now. We're active. We don't need to hoard anymore because energy is being used regularly. And over time, your body listens and responds. Fat cells shrink as they release their contents. Inflammation decreases throughout your body as those cells stop sending distress signals. Insulin sensitivity improves, making it easier to maintain stable blood sugar and preventing future fat storage. Mitochondria multiply inside muscle cells, increasing your capacity to burn fat. Blood flow increases to adipose tissue, making the entire system more efficient. And the best part, the most encouraging and accessible part of this entire message is that this isn't about achieving perfection. It's not about running marathons or crushing yourself in the gym or following some punishing exercise program that you can't sustain. It's about showing up for yourself day after day, putting one foot in front of the other and trusting that your body is doing exactly what it's designed to do when given the right signals. This is a tool that works with your biology, not against it. It's not magic that happens overnight. It's not a quick fix that promises instant results. And it works precisely because it respects your body instead of trying to fight it or override it. So, here's my question for you as we wrap up. What surprised you most about what you learned today? Was it the detailed biology of how fat cells actually work? Was it the minute-by-minute timeline of what happens during a walk? Or was it the fundamental shift in perspective, the idea that your body has been protecting you rather than sabotaging you this entire time? I want you to think about that. And if something in this resonated with you, share your thoughts, because someone else reading your experience might need to hear exactly what you have to say. Your journey might be the encouragement someone else needs to take their first step. Now, go take that walk. Your 30 to 40 billion fat cells are waiting to respond.